I think it's always fun to kind of go back to some of the origin stories, like where something began. And just talk a little bit about, like, how did you even get to Miami? Because you are not from this city, like, but now today you're Mr. 305 in many ways. But like, how did you even get to Miami? Let's talk about it. We're going to talk about the gyms, we're talking about the water, the merch, the clothing line, the designs. But like, let's get back.
Let's go back to the root.
Let's go back to the beginning. I don't know how many sparkling waters we're going to drink, but
yeah,
we might have to take a bathroom break.
The ABV is low in this, guys.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
So it was really interesting. I was an assistant strength coach at Stanford University, and I was thinking, that was what I was going to do. I was going to be a strength coach and grow in the rankings and do that for a living. And I was personal training also at a place called AC Fitness. It used to be Gold's Gym, and
that's all in Alabama.
Yeah, this is in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
Sorry. You get to that point where you've told the story so many times you think people know where you're from. But yeah, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. Graduated from Auburn University, played football there. So I'm in Birmingham, being a strength coach at Stanford University. A buddy of mine, this incredibly looking, handsome black man that was a good friend of mine that went to school with me, he was in Miami modeling and working in movies and modeling and stuff. And he hits me up and he's like, hey, if you shave your head, and this is when I had lovely locks like yourself, I actually had hair. He's like, if you shave your head right now, then I bet I can get you a job as a body double on Bad Boys 2. So I was like, I kid you not. Within 30 minutes, I shaved my head and sent him a picture. So I was just like, you were down for it. Yeah, I was like, whatever, I was young and
I'm looking for an opportunity.
Yeah. And so I shaved my head, sent him a picture, and literally they hired me on the spot. I looked identical to the guy. It was a character called Zank in Bad Boys 2.
Yes.
And in the beginning of the movie, he comes out of the water, the back of his bald head comes out of the water, and that's the back of my bald head. So
let's go.
Yeah. And so it was paying like $300 a day. When I show up on set, they're like, oh, are you Manning the stunt man? And I was like, yes, I am. I was like, I don't know about stunts, but whatever. And I had my own trailer, and they made like a fake bullet wound in me, and like it shot for like about 3 months. Got to hang out with Will Smith's body double, and I actually never met Will Smith, but I was with all the body doubles and the stuntmen and stuff,
And that's like a whole world?
Yeah. Michael Bay yelled at me like at least 3 times.
Really?
Like screamed at me,
What was his situation? You weren't listening?
It's interesting. No, he was just trying to make a point. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but when you see the movie, so there was a scene where you light a fuse, and your hands, so if you can imagine when you go to the movie theater, that huge screen, your hands are on the entire screen.
Yeah.
So he's like, your hands are going to be on the entire screen. Make sure you do it right. And I'm like, what? And so it was such an experience. And
I've actually had dinner with Michael Bay.
Oh yeah,
times.
He was a wild man.
If I ever get a chance again to have dinner with him, I want to say, do you know my friend Manning Sumner?
I doubt you remember.
Was like a manicure that you needed, or was more so like, what did you have to do?
I had gloves on, so I didn't really understand but there was a way to light the fuse that he wanted to make sure that my hands weren't blocking the fuse and that you could see me light it. It's very detailed.
And he was fired up about it.
Yeah, and he was inspired up by it.
Like, and were you inspired by that, or were you just scared?
It was a little intimidating at first because, this is
a world you know nothing about.
Exactly. I'm fresh off the boat from Alabama, like trying to be an actor, like I was not one. So it was challenging but fun. But I kind of identified that this is definitely not something that's going to pay the bills. And I was literally living in the smallest apartment you can imagine on Euclid Road with this 6'4" friend of mine. So we're stepping on each other, and I was like, all right, I got to make some money. I got to get the heck out of his apartment. So I went to Crunch, and I'll never forget, I spoke to a guy named Scott Hauser, and I was like, hey, are you hiring? And they were like, actually, we do independent contractors, and anyone can train here. You just got to pay the rent fee. So I was like, done. So I started paying the rent fee. There was 38 trainers at Crunch Gym at the time. And Crunch was like where everybody went. Yep. Like Beyonce, 50 Cent. It was just
it was a scene.
It was a scene. It was 13th and Washington,
yep.
Next to the clubs. And it was back when South Beach was like South
And what year?
Beach.
This is like 2000?
So this is 2001.
Wow.
Yeah, taking it back. And so I got the job, and literally within 3 months, I had more clients than all 38 trainers. So I kind of like immediately established myself.
What do you attribute that to? Just being personable, like
I think
working hard. Like what were you doing differently? You feel like?
I think when I first came, I was like, it was very obvious. I was like young and from Alabama, you know, had the accent and I just kind of stood out at the time. I mean, I would like to think I still look good, but at the time I was shredded, you know, looked really good, and I kind of was a show off from that standpoint. So I would work out, you know, with shirt off and like kind of be on display, but also knew what I was doing too. So I had a strength and conditioning background. So I think the combination of looking the part, but also knowing what I was doing was very attractive. And then also too, I mean, let's face it, Miami was full of, you know, the gay population, and I had 17 gay clients right at the beginning because they loved me, you know, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I mean, they love to work out, they have money, and they're loyal too. So it just worked out, you know, it worked out.
So you're working hard, you're going to work every day. What do you feel like when you look back at that time, what do you think you were learning that has even stuck with you to this moment? Like if you go back, that's 20 years ago. Right. What's something that you're going, man, that thing I learned then is something I'm still applying today?
I think dealing with people, first and foremost. I think, like I just said, 17 gay clients, but then there was also, you know, probably 14, you know, regular people, but every single person was different. Like every single personality was different. Some were difficult, some were needy, some were easy, some needed more attention than others, some needed you to be hard, some needed you to be soft, some, you know what I mean? Like there was, you didn't have one client, you had 24 different personalities that you had to manage and figure out how to motivate them, how to keep them progressing, how to keep them engaged in this journey of fitness, how to stimulate them in different ways, each person, and then also too, just kind of like throwing yourself out there from a standpoint of being able to talk to anybody. Like I feel like I'm that kind of person that I can just talk to anyone. Like sometimes you yell when you're not supposed to yell. Like you think that this is a client that needs to be, you know, like do it again, like that, and then all of a sudden they don't talk to you for 3 days. You're like, oh no, I shouldn't have yelled.
I read that wrong.
I read it wrong, right? So I wasn't perfect by any means. I lost clients. I said the wrong things. I did the wrong. But through that, you're like, man, if I would have recognized there were signs, like, and then you go back and you play it over your head, and you're like, man, there were signs. I should have listened. But a lot of times you do it a certain way, and that's the only way. So it was really just a time for me to develop new ways to do things, and that I didn't have to be so intense all the time with everybody. Sure. And I think that's what I take with me today. Certainly, it's been 20 years of learning that, but I think to answer your question, to go back to that time, that would be the biggest thing, is just learning how to deal with people, all shapes, sizes, sex.
Through people, work with people.
Right.
I think what I'm really fascinated by, and the reason why I'm even asking that, is just because there's not really any secrets to success. There are just routines that go unnoticed. It's the compound effect. And so even when I'm saying that, it's like I think that we learn lessons along the way, but there's some lessons you learn at 20 years of age that you have to keep doing at 40 years of age. It's like when I went and got my driver's license, like going to whatever the driver's school was, right? It's like 10 and 2, right? 10 and 2. Well, I'm now 38 and I'm still driving a car, and I still have to do 10 and 2.
Right.
Like if I don't do 10 and 2, I'm going to swerve off the road. Maybe I got a little bit better at driving, but I'm saying there's certain principles that what I did at the start of my career, I still have to do at the end of my career. Otherwise you will swerve off. Otherwise you will find yourself destroyed. And so I like the lessons that we learn, but sometimes people think it's like, oh, that was small time. But it's not small time. It's the beginning of time that begins to create principles, codes, standards that we live by. Yeah.
You never lose it, you know. And if anything, you got to even take that and again apply it. So
I remember as a young man, just like 23 when we first started doing church type stuff, I had to learn how to get something done with very little resource. So I just think even at 38, we might have more resource today, but I want to believe that I learned how to be resourceful.
Right.
I want to learn that I believe how to be innovative, that innovation is birthed out of limitation. So many times we curse the limits that we're given, but it's actually the limitation that's creating a pathway for innovation to happen.
I love the way you said
and
that
so it's a mindset, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that those early days, you're starting to form a mindset that we're going to get to where we're at today, but going back to those early days at Crunch is a big part of the story. So you're there, you're training, you're teaching. How long before you get out of Crunch, and what's that journey?
Yeah, so what happened was...
And you're how old are you, 23, 24?
So I'm... How old am I?
2001?
23?
20 years ago?
Something
yeah.
like that,
Exactly,
yeah. Not to, I'm old fart over here, but I'm 45 now, so yeah, it was something like that.
We did your 40th birthday in 2019, I know that.
Oh yeah,
in New
that's
York
right,
City.
in New York, right
We
before
saw
the
Dave
pandemic.
Chappelle,
Yes,
and
that was
we
a
were
great
both
time.
sick.
We were sick as dogs. I think we had COVID, we didn't know.
Yeah. We were sick, yeah. A year before it came out, we had it that summer.
Exactly.
We were so sick, and it was Manning's birthday. We went to New York. We went to go see Dave Chappelle. We were both under the weather, and we wouldn't allow ourselves to not still celebrate. It was kind of funny because it's like, we already made this plan. We're going to do it.
Yeah,
but we
were deathly sick. It was fun,
bro.
And we had a good time.
Yes.
We made the most out of it.
So you're at Crunch. Talk about you're working there. You got all these clients coming.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of you going, oh, I'm good at this.
Yeah, I think I identified immediately that exactly the way you just said it. I was like, you know what? I must be good at this because I have more clients than anybody. But I didn't let it go to my head. It was more like, and this is why I think, is because, so I had a lot of friends because of my college football days that were in the NFL.
Sure.
So I started getting phone calls from my NFL friends of like, hey, what are you doing? Where are you at? And as soon as I said Miami, they were like, oh, bro, we got to come. We got to come. So everybody loved Miami. So I started to get some of the guys coming down during the off season, and I started training some NFL guys in the off season. That's when I met the infamous Nevin Shapiro, who most people know from the Ponzi scheme. But I actually met him before all of that happened, way before all that happened. And he was the largest owner of the University of Miami. And he just like really took me under his wing. He was just like, we just hit it off from day one. I was training him and his 3 girlfriends and his wife.
Wow.
And then he started introducing me to the Drew Rosenhaus of the world, Jeremy Shockey, Antrell Roll, all the UM players, and some of the guys that had already graduated are in the NFL. And so we just started building on that, and I started training what's the guy? Anthony Clark. His name was Tony Clark. He was primarily Jeremy Shockey's trainer. So we came up with this program and this system of training professional athletes. So we literally were training guys for like 4 hours a day. So we'd wake up, we would do a morning weight routine, then we'd go to the beach and we'd do sand drills and stuff, and then we would go the Flamingo Athletic Club, we'd run the stairs. Like we made like a whole day out of it. Then we'd party like crazy at night. We'd go to Privé and all these places, party all night, and then do it again the next day. And this is when like athletes actually
What facilities were you using? Because you didn't have your own yet.
That was when I left Crunch and I went to a place called the Flamingo Athletic Club. So a guy named John Hanrahan was running it. Fantastic guy. Almost, I would say, even another mentor of mine. Like just he was a world-class wrestler, and his just dedication to fitness, his dedication to excellence, the way he did everything was just you took notes.
So you were renting space essentially there to bring clients through.
Yeah, so I was a personal trainer that rented space that started training these professional athletes in this space. There was a full court basketball court on the roof. We would play basketball for hours. And I mean, I'm talking some runs. I mean, Jeremy Shockey, like Jim Jones, like, I mean, it was like a scene. It was like a celebrity scene out there, an athlete scene. And I ended up having 29 NFL guys that I was responsible for during the off season. And then I met a guy named Troy. So this is crazy that I have 2 former clients that went to prison, one for a Ponzi scheme and another one that was a con artist. But of course, I didn't know that when I was training them. Yeah. But I met this guy named Troy Stratus, and he was like, "Hey, I need a personal trainer to travel with. Would you do it?" And I literally, again, I was just at that age. I think where you wanted to challenge yourself, you wanted to try anything. So he was like, I'm getting on a private jet tomorrow, like I'll pay you today and we're off to the races. And I was like, done. So I left all that business aside and jumped on a private jet, had a big stack of cash in my pocket, and started training this, what I thought was a businessman. He come to find out he was a con artist. But we ended up in LA with Eddie Murphy's ex-wife. We ended up traveling all over the place, staying at these penthouses, and it was a wild time. But then I'll make a long story short.
What do you think at that point? Do you think you had vision at that point, or you were just taking the opportunities that came your way?
Like vision for
like just going like you gave up all those clients.
Yeah.
Was that a big decision, or that was kind of like you shaving your head when Bad Boy? You were kind of in this place of going, I'm young, I'm down for an adventure. Is that kind of what you or?
I think so. I think I probably was a little bit naive in the fact that I saw $10,000 in cash in front of me.
Yeah.
Like instant money. I think the private jet and the fanciness of it was enticing at the time. Certainly didn't realize that giving up a consistent, steady clientele to then take on
a person
who
happened to be fraudulent.
Exactly. So I tell people all the time that it's when I watch Devil Wears Prada, you remember that movie?
Yeah, of course.
When I watch that movie,
Meryl Streep's some of her finest work. Chill out. Okay. Yeah, of course.
When I watch that movie, I watch it as if I went through it. Like really? He treated me like that. Okay. Like he would say, do this, and it would be an impossible task, and I would have to figure out a way to do it, you know? So I think during that time, although it was very weird and stressful and it was creepy, to be honest. Like the guy was definitely like bisexual and hit on me every day, and it was very weird. I learned a ton of how to figure stuff out. Again, how to deal with people and how to manage through just serving. Even though, I was serving a con artist, but I didn't know it at the time. But I was just committed to doing a good job. Sure. However that looked like. And so by traveling with him and doing all this crazy stuff, I was just learning how to figure out and learning how to deal with difficult people.
Yep.
And so then that blew up in my face because he told me he loved me and he wanted me to be his Brad Pitt. And I was like, I'll see you later. So really? I will never forget, it was at a sushi restaurant in LA. He like looks me like deep in my eyes and he's like, I'm in love with you. I was like, I'm out. So I think back then it was taxis. I literally take a taxi from the airport, go home, no clients, no money.
How long had you been on the road with him? Or
6 months.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, he's supposed to pay me $10,000 a month, and I only got the first month. Because I was he was paying for everything on the road and stuff.
You're like, I'm good.
So I figured I was good. So he conned me also. So then I get back to Miami with nothing. No clients. I given my clients away, so I had to essentially start over.
Wow.
But that's when I met Scott Stapp. So then I meet Scott Stapp and we just hit it off and I become his private frontman for Creed. Yeah. And I meet him and we hit it off and I become his private personal trainer.
Tell me about meeting Scott Stapp. How do you meet Scott? He comes into your training again, he walks in, or mutual friends?
I honestly don't remember I don't remember the Crowbar.
It's like random clubs from Miami in the early 2000s.
It was an introduction. It was someone introduced me to him, and he asked, what I did, and I told him, and then he was like, I need someone, and he was fat at the time. Like it was one of his periods where he just got off like painkillers or something, so he was swollen and fat, and he was about to put out his new album, the Scott Stapp album. Okay. It was after Creed.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's a guy named Manny. I forget his last name. It was his manager that introduced me. Now I remember. His name was Manny.
I met him years ago.
Okay. So it was him that introduced me. And it was crazy because he threw up every single session for 3 weeks straight. And every time I was like, oh my God, he's going to fire me. He's going to fire me. Like this guy was like, and I'm talking violent throwing like, like every day. And I'm like, this is never going to stop. And I literally, after every session, I was like, he's going to fire me. He's going to fire me. And 3 weeks later, he like starts to look better. He starts to feel better. Yeah. And then he stops throwing up. And then I can push him a little bit more. And then before you know it, I mean, this guy looked amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was really fun period of time for me. I was in the studio with him a lot, just helping all aspects. I was kind of like the security also, you know, security detail, which was very difficult dealing with a guy like him. But it was fun. I mean, we went to every Heat game on floor seats, you know, like it was a good time. And again, a good learning experience to deal with. And I don't want to call him a difficult person, but just somebody at a high level that you had to serve. Again, it goes back to sacrificing your time for someone else. Everything was about them. It didn't, you know, it wasn't about like if he called me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I had to be available, you know, that kind of thing. And so it was definitely a learning lesson. So yeah, I mean, I could talk about all these things for hours, but
that idea then, like, I think what's fascinating is, and I think it's also encouraging, because once again, whenever you start to compare then and now, people can see now, and if they're not careful, they can just think now was always then, but it's not. It's always sort of a broken, fragmented, even, it's never a straight path, right? It's kind of like over here and over there. I just feel like the guy that I know today, though, is so laser focused with like intense vision.
Yeah.
Was that in you then, or that's all I'm trying to land on that? Like, are you working for Scott and are you going, oh, I could do this for 2 other major celebrities? Or
no,
you just...
I always saw a facility. I always saw me owning a gym. And actually not even just a gym. I saw myself owning a sports complex, like with a pool and a track and a full court basketball court and all the amenities. And like, I always saw, because I was training, and where it came from was I was trained. Do you hear that? It's like crazy.
I don't know what that is. Maybe outside of the
space. So when you talk about vision, I think the vision for legacy started happening when I was training the con artists, because we were going to all of these gyms across the country. And every single time we would go to a new gym, I would say to myself, the energy in here is like, the setup is the exact same. Every single gym you walk into, front desk, you have offices, you have a cardio section, a free weight section, a machine section, and then aerobics room, right? They all look the same. Whether 24-hour fitness, Gold's Gym, Equinox, all of these gyms, they look the same, they feel the same. There's TVs everywhere. Everybody's walking around with zombies with their headphones on. And I'm like, and I came from a college football background, so I'm like, this isn't fitness. This isn't cool. Like, there's no energy in here. I went to one place in Salt Lake City, Utah. It was a Gold's Gym in Salt Lake City, Utah. And it had the most gorgeous view of the mountains. But other than that, the gym was whack, but the view was cool. And so I was taking mental notes the entire time of, if I owned the gym, this is what it would look like. If I had the opportunity with this space, I've done this my whole life because of my mom. So my mom used to rearrange the living room and the dining room like once a month. And then I would help her. And then it got to a point where I would do it. And so I was like an interior decorator. And I loved it. And then she also took me shopping with her all the time. So I would watch her, do the shopping and what she picked out and things like that. And that's kind of where my creative comes from. And to this day, if I walk into a bank, like if I'm in the bank, I'm looking at how I would remodel it and how I'd rob it. Like, that's what I'm doing. Like I'm not just in there waiting on my thing. I'm literally analyzing, this place is ugly. This is how I'd make it look better. And then if I wanted to rob it, I could do it like this, like that. Yeah. And that's how I am with gyms. So when I walk into gyms, I'm like, why do they have this here? That doesn't make any functional sense. Like, why do they do this? Why do they do this? And through that experience is how I design legacy in my head.